Ahead as the cliff turns and an ice palace in an unusual place. Later in the show. Welcome to 3 Times Square this Tuesday from Reuters World Headquarters in New York. We'd rather talk about Cliff Richard, Cliff Robertson, or even Cliff from the hit 1980s U.S. TV show Cheers, but instead it's the fiscal cliff. President Obama and House Speaker John Boehner meeting with a bipartisan group of governors today. Each will push his approach to averting the spending cuts and tax increases set to go into effect next year. Economists fear the measures will push the country back into recession. The president insisting on a tax hike for those families making over $250,000 a year. Republicans not going along with this. The market's hanging on every word. Right now, we are roughly flat, pretty much right after the open. The concern about a possible rise in the tax rate on dividends in 2013 leading companies to issue more payments this year. The latest to take action includes Coach, which this morning pushed up its dividend to December 27th from January. And American Eagle Outfitters, which moved the payment of its first quarter dividend from the spring of 2013 to December 28th. Oracle announced late Monday plans to push several of its dividend payments scheduled for 2013 to the end of this year. Toll Brothers shareholders seeing dividends in a different way, the company posting a higher quarterly profit and saying new orders rose sharply, the latest sign of a recovery in the housing market. The luxury home builder also seeing average selling prices rise in its fiscal fourth quarter versus a year earlier. Shares closed at $32.43 Monday and are now up slightly at about $33.50. Our power player of the day, the never shy mayor of London, Boris Johnson, speaking with Reuters today about his city, his country, and its role in the European Union. Our Axel Threlfall joins us from London. Axel, Boris making a few headlines over there, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. He was in the auditorium here in full force, making everyone laugh as normal. And it seems the battle between him and our Prime Minister is heating up again. Boris basically heaped a ton of pressure on David Cameron by calling for a referendum on British membership of the EU single market. He said the euro was a calamitous project and that we should negotiate a new treaty to prevent our slide out of the world's biggest economic area. Now, don't get me wrong, Lisa. He wants us to stay in just on different terms. He wants us to benefit from the single market, a gigantic free trade area, basically. But scrap things like the social chapter and the fisheries policy. Of course, as I said at the top, it wouldn't have been a Boris Johnson event without plenty of quips and laughs and one-liners. He sidestepped 3 questions on whether he'd like to be Prime Minister. This that I'm going to play you now was perhaps his most comprehensible response.
My chances of becoming Prime Minister are about as good as my being reincarnated as a baked bean or a turnip or something.
So, chances as good as being reincarnated as a baked bean or a turnip. Can you imagine Mayor Bloomberg saying that?
I can't at all. What about a brush or just a comb? Has he ever run into one of those?
No. And it's actually interesting you mentioned that because one of the questions from the audience was, where do you get your hair cut? And he said, look, for security reasons, I can't mention his name, but he's a very nice chap down by London Bridge. That's our mayor.
That's our mayor. All right, and folks can check out more of Boris on Reuters Insider. Thanks to Axel. And finally, talk about a cool spot for drinks. This igloo-like bar is not in Norway, Sweden, or Iceland, but the famed Egyptian beach town of Sharm el-Sheikh. After sunning by the Red Sea, the tables are turned when tourists get a shot in the arm or down the hatch in this chilly watering hole where the walls, tables, and chairs are made of ice. It's one attraction Egypt hopes will lure visitors back to the region, which suffered a sharp drop in tourism, as you can imagine, since last February's political uprising. The country working hard to portray an image of stability and security, but not necessarily sobriety. That's the latest from 3 Times Square this Tuesday. You can follow us on Twitter at Reuters Insider and check out our Reuters YouTube channel at Reuters.com/ReutersTV. I'm Lisa Bernhard. This is Reuters.